Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And as that little message just said, recording is in progress and this program will be recorded and posted on the ISC YouTube channel at a later date for anyone who's not able to join us. So thank you so much for joining us today, either in the room or on Zoom. And a sincere thank you to Dr. Johnson for being here with us. Dr. Johnson is the principal for the last 3 years of Lower Merion High School, and prior to that was the 9th grade principal of Merion High School for 8 years. And according to our acting assistant to the superintendent, he is the authority in our district on all things middle school transition. And you can see why that would be with his resume. He has experience on both sides and in both schools. And so in shifting this program to a roundtable, just a reminder that this is a cooperative and interactive form of communication. And we ask everyone here, both on Zoom and in the room, to treat Dr. Johnson and all of our subsequent guests with the utmost respect for being here today and to show our appreciation. This meeting, as with all of our roundtable meetings, will occur in the spirit of cooperation, open communication, and mutual respect. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so I think our first question is if you could tell us what is going well this year. What do you have?
Sure. I think a lot of things are going well. With regard to our 8 to 9 transition, we spent a lot of time front loading the collaboration with families and really trying to ensure that as students come into the school, they feel welcomed and a part of the school community. So we plan out a variety of activities that start really this time of year. So as I answer questions, I'll be thinking about what we did to welcome current 9th grade students and what we're going to do to welcome next year's 9th grade student, our rising 8th grade students. But we do start with a series of orientations in the fall, which I think go really well. We get a lot of parent attendance at the 9th grade family orientation. So we do a student orientation in the daytime where they have a chance to go through their schedule, to meet all of their teachers, to meet their advisory teachers, and then also to collaborate with other students. So our students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade are also a part of that process.
And that's before school.
And that's before school. It's always the Wednesday or Thursday before the first day of school. So
save that date if you have a rising 9th grader.
and we'll make sure that we send it out to you as well. And then we do a parent orientation that night for our 9th grade and new families, regardless of grade level, just to provide an orientation to the school, the setting, what they can expect the first day of school and things like that. So we try to front load a lot of that information with families and with teams. We have 9th grade teams at both schools as well, which is really a great opportunity for teachers to collaborate around a group of students that all of those teachers who are on those teams have the same 100 and some odd students. So you have really an opportunity for a lot of collaboration. If there's a student who has been out and has been sick, the team is all aware of that and collaborate around how they're supporting the student. If there's a student who may be struggling in one area, you can have conversations about whether other teachers are seeing that, what's working in other classrooms, or maybe that one class is an outlier from the other. So it creates an opportunity for collaboration. And at times we can even invite parents in to meet with those teams. So you're not just sort of pigeonholed into like parent conference night where there's a limited number of availability and spots. So I think that transition process is going pretty well. And I like the way that we open the school year with students as well. I think it's an exciting time. I always say to parents when I meet them for the first time for 8 to 9 transition, it's the most exciting time of the year because you get to meet the newest members of your school community. You're welcoming them in, and there's a lot of energy that 8th to 9th grade students bring to the building and there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that as well. So we try to also bring that part to our planning. So I think we do a fairly good job of doing that. And then we're also working with families and taking that feedback so that we can improve over time.
Great.
So you alluded to,
Yeah, we go back and forth.
you alluded to that there are different things that happen in different years. What are the changes that we will expect for this year?
Yeah, so we're always refining like process, and we're always refining what we do. So the type of communication will be similar, but maybe the mode of communication is a little bit different. You might see more like video updates. We're always trying to wrestle with what's the best way for people to receive information. I have learned in my 11 years in the district that really long emails are not as effective. Newsletters are great, but if they're too long, your readership drops off about halfway through. So the things that are at the bottom don't get read as much as things at the top. So I'm experimenting with some videos that allow you just to do quick hits, that almost like a podcast of sorts. So just really toying with the ways that you can share information so that parents get what they need. And we get similar questions every year, so we don't get like new questions. So it's really easy to predict some of the things that are like tangible things that parents want to know at the outset. And so we think about that a lot. So the way we communicate is something that we're always thinking about revising. We have a course selection website. So if you're a rising ninth grade student coming from one of our middle schools, you'll have access to a lot of information on how do we go through course registration? What are the things we should be thinking about? Unfortunately, there's a tech savvy side to this where you have to be able to access PowerSchool to get to course recs. You have to be able to access all these different systems. So we have videos uploaded that will show you how to walk through that process. We found that the videos work better. Some people work better from like an information sheet. So we provide it in multiple modes so that parents can access it in a way that makes the most sense for them. And we really try to make sure that information is available. And then we, again, are open to that feedback to kind of refine those things as we go through the year. We did some different things with our opening day assemblies. We listened to a lot of the student feedback from last year. You know, one of the challenging parts of opening a school for like 15, 16, 1700 students is how do you welcome everybody in? How do you get them everything they need and without overwhelming them in the first couple of days of school? So our opening assemblies are often welcome back. Here are the expectations, and sometimes it can feel a little expectation heavy. So we started the year with like a pep rally for each grade level and just did something fun to orient students to the school, really make them feel good about being there. We got a lot of positive feedback about that. We had a DJ and our cheer squad was cheering, and we had group games and competitions, and it's just a nice way to sort of build community, and then also still do those expectations, but able to spread that out over time. So we're always refining those things as to how do we help families feel really a part, and how do we help students feel like they're a part of the school community as they're coming in.
I have two kids that went through Merion when you were ninth grade principal there, and a third who's too young for you, but at Merion. But one of the things that they remember fondly is kind of the energy that you would bring, and some of the more like school spirit related energy for Merion, aside from your amazing guidance. But so I guess what next question is like, what's really fun about your job, and what are some of the challenges?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we could spend the rest of the meeting on that one. I'll try to keep it short. What's fun about the job is it's different every single day. So I often laugh. My wife will say at the end of the day, "How was your day?" Okay, so let me start with, at the top of the day where you may start the day with a meeting. Today we had a pop-up PD where some teachers talked with colleagues about executive functioning, and I'm here now in this meeting, and then I'm going to go back to a very different meeting. So just throughout the day, there's a variety of different things you engage in that make the day really exciting and engaging. It requires your brain to do a lot of shifting. The most exciting part about my job is really the opportunity to be with students, to be in classrooms, to see kids learning, to be able to collaborate with students. Those are the best days for me. So there are some days where you just have a meeting heavy day, and that's just the nature of sometimes being a leader. Those days are a little more draining and not as exciting, because you want to be around students, you want to be around what's happening in classrooms. So I often find those to be the best days, that I can get into classrooms, I can be around students, and be able to meet and talk with students. So I have a principal's advisory council that I meet with monthly. We just did our yearbook photo yesterday, and even just that 5 minutes of sitting and talking with students while we're waiting for the photographer to queue up and all of that was it was just a good opportunity to connect with students. And those are the best parts about the job. And there are a variety of challenges, as you can imagine. Leading and serving are difficult things. And so I think about those things a lot when you hear the term like servant leadership. What does that mean? And how do you step into a place and serve there and lead people and like make decisions, and knowing that no decision you make is widely loved necessarily. But still really trying to work and serve and lead and do those things in a way that honors the core values that we have as a district and as a school. Those are the things that I really enjoy. So I think those are some of the balance of like what's great about the job, and then what are some of the challenges.
Mhm. You mentioned, I'm gonna skip ahead for a second, because you just mentioned your student advisory council, which is
Yes.
great. If maybe you can talk a little bit about how you incorporate student voice and feedback. That
Sure.
just ties.
Right. So my principal's advisory council meets monthly, and I send that out to all students at the beginning of the year. And welcome any student that signs up for it. So it's not like a sports team where you have cuts and things like that. If you want to be a part of Principal's Advisory
Oh,
Council,
that's great.
you're able to come out and be a part of that.
Mhm.
And we have a variety of things that we discuss and talk about throughout the year. I may ask for feedback on certain things. We had a food truck festival to start the year, a welcome back food truck festival. So we had a lot of feedback about that last year, that students wanted a DJ, and could we get like a bounce house, and nothing with a projectile, like an obstacle course and things like that. So feedback on those types of things is really important. And so that's one of the ways that we just embed student voice and feedback. We also listen and just have authentic conversations. So it's nice to have a structure built with something like a principal's advisory council. It's also nice to just be open to conversations as you're walking through the halls. I spend a lot of time at Lunch and Learn just checking in on students. How are things going? When students are on their free periods, oftentimes I'll walk around and just sit down and talk with students. How are things going with you this year? What's going on? What are things that, what can we do better? What are things that are going well for you? So I think just authentic opportunities for feedback from students is something that's just embedded into our practice, and you want to continue to do those things. And we're always looking at how we can do those things even better. Obviously there are opportunities for surveys and things throughout the year. On any given year, there may be different ways that we get feedback, but that genuine, authentic opportunity for conversation and that forum for students to kind of sit, meet with me and other administrators and leaders in the building has been pretty valuable.
So how do you think that the Lower Merion School District policies and practices in the area of middle school transition compare amongst to our neighboring districts?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I actually reached out to a lot of my colleagues in other districts in the Central Athletic League, especially. We're always communicating with one another, and I sent them a text and said, "What do you all do? How does it kind of compare?" And it really is very similar. I mean, most districts in the area do an orientation in the spring. They do a fall orientation to welcome families in. There's usually something around the course selection process where they embed presentations and things like that. So we're pretty similar along those lines. I think what sets us apart, aside from the fact that I think we're just awesome as a district, is we do have at both buildings. Harrison has a 9th grade mentor program, and then we have student ambassadors at Lower Merion. I didn't see that in any of the feedback from my colleagues, and not as a criticism. It's just something that we know is a best practice, that when you're coming into a new building, it's nice to have adults that you connect with, but it's just as valuable to have other peers that you can connect with. And that was actually something that came through my principal's advisory council last year. I had 2 9th grade students who sat with me and said, "Listen, we're new here and we would like to have like a big sibling club. It would be great to have like older students that, so," and I said to them, we have the ambassador program, but it sounds like it may be an opportunity for us to expand it. So it's a little bit more commensurate with like a more formalized peer mentoring program. So that's something that we're actually taking a look at this year, how we can expand that so that it's embedded in our advisory program, so that those mentor students are assigned to an advisory. So you have a go-to, set of students that you are connected to throughout the year. So I think that's something that sets us apart. You spoke a little bit to the energy that we bring to those presentations. So I can't speak to how my colleagues run their programs in other districts, but I was always really big on having just a lot of excitement when students come in. And so when I was at Harrington, we did a Ram Pride call and response. We do an Aces Nation call and response at Lower Merion. And I just think it's important that ouch. That was not rehearsed. I do think that a call and response, sort of choral response thing is nice, just in connecting people to sort of a common thing that you do. So I'm always about bringing that energy. I think is kind of cool.
You mentioned the course selection process. Sorry, I'm going off script here, but and I know that we've gotten questions in the past about kind of what that process is like, both for students in, and I know we've got kids coming in from outside the district who may be transferring, either moving here, coming from a private school or whatever. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what that process is like?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the course selection process for rising ninth grade students starts at the middle school level.
Mhm.
And so the teachers have a variety of things that they are looking at. PSSA scores, current student performance, work habits, study skills, a variety of different things. And data points that they're looking at, and doing those things as a team, because middle schools have teams as well. So that group of teachers thinking about, recommendations for students and how that looks moving forward. So that process starts at the middle school level. We send out correspondence to families to let them know that you can, at a certain point, go into Power School and see what those recommendations are. And then once you have access to those recommendations, you then have the opportunity to make some decisions about what you want to do.
Mhm.
So for example, you could have a student who's recommended for all honors classes. And as a family, you could say, I want to think about how I want to balance my child's schedule moving into next year. And so you might say, instead of doing 4 honors classes, maybe we'll do 2, and maybe we'll lay off in these other areas. And then you have an opportunity to do that. And then students at the 8th grade, our counselors go down to all 3 middle schools and then meet with each student individually
Mhm.
and put their requests into the system. Now, there's a lot of expectation that parents are a part of that process, because sometimes students will just go in and pick what they want, and parents are like, what happened? I thought you wanted this class, and how did you end up with that class? So we really are working to communicate with families on what you see when you go into that system, because it's not something that you've done yet if you don't have a student who's been through high school. So it's really important that families know when that portal opens that you should be going in, you should be sitting with your child, you should be looking at the courses and making those selections and going through that process. And then we communicate back to families, here are the classes that are going to be scheduled. So you have an idea of what's going to happen as we're building that schedule throughout the spring and summer months. And then later in the fall, we release the actual schedules with, periods of the day and teachers that are assigned to those classes and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how can parents help you?
That's a good question. I really value, so, in my career, I spent 8 years in elementary school. I spent 1 year in middle school, no knock on middle, but it was 1 year. And then I've been in high school for 11 years. One of the things that I always think is important, that I think about a lot, is elementary schools seem, you're in the community. A lot of our students are able to walk to school because there's proximity and things like that. As you get into the older grades, now you have, more than one teacher. Elementary school, you're with one teacher all day. You build a solid rapport with the families, with that one teacher. You get to middle school, you get to high school, you're more like a free agent. You have 6, 7, 8 different teachers. You're rotating throughout the day. And oftentimes parent involvement changes as you go throughout. There's a desire to have your students being more independent. So sometimes parents will back off a little bit. I think that collaboration between school and home is really important. So I think involvement with your HSA is really, really valuable, particularly as you get to the high school level. And the ISC as well. I think that collaboration is really important. There are a ton of resources, and I think our HSAs are really working hard to get parents involved and to get parents engaged. So I think that part is really important. And I think about the student experience a lot of times, and making sure that students have routines when they come home. When we find that students are struggling, oftentimes we'll say, well, what's your routine look like when you leave school? What do you do? Do you have a space to study? Do you have a time frame? Do you give yourself a break before you get into homework, or do you go right to homework? Do you eat anything? What are the things how are you balancing your mental health and those types of things? So thinking about what routines are healthy for your family and for your children are really important. How are you balancing the activities that you're engaged in school? And then how do you balance the activities that you're engaging with outside of school? My children are very young. They're 8 and 6. But at 8, I'm thinking about how often my 8-year-old wants to go to this location to practice basketball, and how much video game time does he get, which is 0 right now. But thinking through what's the balance, and how do we make sure that you stay engaged in school, but also engaged in things that are of interest to you. So I think a lot about the healthy balance that students have. And I think that's the most important thing families can do, is your kids better than anybody. And so you know what they need. And so thinking about that as you think about the transition to high school, what they're going to be involved in, and what are they already doing, and what are their passions and interests. You don't want to lose those things as you transition. You really want to bolster those things. So thinking about how you have a healthy balance is really important.
I cannot agree more. Yeah, I do think that's really, really important. It's something that comes up a lot in our discussions, especially when we talk about like our students' mental health.
Can I just add to that real quick? I'm sorry. Checking Schoology pages is important.
I've not yet figured out how to get onto Schoology.
Yeah, so we are, we might have an answer for that. We're working on, at Lower Merion, we've dubbed them fire sessions, family involvement, resources and experiences, and providing like parent workshops. And so something we're looking to do later in the spring is to do a workshop on Schoology, just so parents know how to get onto Schoology. What are the things you see when you get to Schoology? Your child has 6 teachers. Each Schoology page looks a little bit different, but there are some landmark things that are similar. The weekly planner, what's coming up in class, which is really the thing that I think parents should know about. You should know what's on the weekly planner. If your child comes home and you say, "What did you do today?" And if you get the typical like 15-year-old answer, it might be a one-word answer, like a short blurb, nothing, not much, great. What do you have for homework? Nothing, not much, everything was great. So you have an opportunity through Schoology to go in and access information so you can see what was done on Tuesday, what homework was due, what assignments were done, what long-term things are coming up. So that part I think is really important. That sort of goes into what your routine is when you get home, when your kids get home, just making sure that they have what they need and you have awareness as well.
So actually, and Mr. Scott Weinstein is in the room, and actually, this is a question that's come up in the past. If there's a way, for parents to be able to like access Naviance, Power School and Schoology, like, I think they're all run by the same company and like one, I don't know if there's a way to simplify kind of the access to that, but I love the idea of having training for parents, because we're not nearly as technically savvy as our kids are. At least I know I'm definitely not. So yeah, I think that is a great resource. And you may have answered this in your last bit, but I guess that our next question is like what you wish parents knew about your job or the challenges that you face that we don't know. Like what could we, it's like, I don't know what I don't know, right?
Sure.
And sometimes like I've definitely been guilty of like making assumptions based on the little bits and I think I've got the full picture. So is there anything that you wish that parents knew?
I would say that I think most of us get up really excited to come and work with your children. That's we often say in the district, children are our reason for being. And so I know I come to work every day. I don't think of it as just a job. I really do. It's an experience. It's what like I live it, I breathe it, and I take it home every day as well. So I might get a little emotional. Sorry, that's a part of who I am, but there's a lot of passion for what we do, and we care about your children. And I often say, when I talk to parents, I usually call them mom and dad. Some people don't like it, but that's just how I relate to families. But we are a community of people that work together. We care about your children. We work really hard. And I think what I would want people to know is that we take it home every day. We carry the weight of the decisions we make. We carry the weight of the work that we do. When your children struggle, we carry that weight with us as well. We want every student to be successful, and that's really important to us. And oftentimes my kids will say, "Daddy, how was your day? Did you have a great day with kids?" And sometimes they'll ask, more specific questions. And I'm always thinking about what I bring home to my family. But those things that's just sort of a part of the work that we do. And I would want people to know that we certainly carry the weight of what we do, and we take it serious and we value it and we enjoy it. I enjoy working with the people that I work with. I enjoy collaborating with the families I get to collaborate with. Those things are really valuable to me because we spend a lot of time doing it. So you have to love it. You have to have passion for it in order to do it and keep coming back to doing it every day. Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
And lastly, is there anything, before we open it up to questions,
Sure.
is there anything else you wish we had asked you today?
No, I don't think so. No, I can't think of anything that jumps to mind. If I do, as we sort of go, move forward, I'll certainly share.
Sure.
So I think, because we have people on Zoom, yeah, keep looking there, I assume there are people on Zoom. We're gonna kind of go through questions in the room and then open it up to Zoom to just kind of facilitate things a little bit. And for those of you that are on Zoom, we don't have a huge crowd here today, so we should, be okay. Are there questions in the room?
Yeah. I was wondering, I have younger kids, so I don't know this, but the process of, I know a lot of people get choice of which high school, so when does that start and how does that process go?
Let me just repeat, for those of you that are over Zoom and may not have heard that, the question is about choice and how that process works. And if somebody could put in chat whether or not you could hear the original question, because if so, then I won't repeat them every time, but.
So that process for choice occurs, you find out in 8th grade with respect to your location in the district. So you technically, every student technically has the choice to go to Harrington because they have the International Baccalaureate program. But there are a subset of students who will have the option for Harrington or Lower Merion. And there's a deadline associated with that process that once that information goes out in early January, then you go on. So I think we do it through SharePoint now. So there's a form on the website where you would go in, enter all the appropriate information, student ID number, and then what your high school choice is. And then once that deadline hits, we try to lock those choices in with some levels of flexibility depending on circumstances. But you find out more specifically. You actually do your school visits in January according to that choice. So there are some students who get to go to both. And there are some who only get to go to one because your trajectory is going to be Harrington based on where you live. But that choice option opens up for families. It's really around this time. So when we send out those January mailings, you'll have a better idea of what your choices are. And then you're able to make the decision that makes the most sense for you and your family.
And I want to say, and I can't remember the specifics, last night at the board meeting, Miss Megan Schaefer did make an announcement about one of you, maybe, like it was
Partner school.
about partner schooling, and it was that, what, the first 370?
375 maybe.
There are gonna be caps on the class sizes, so it's 375 for 9th and 10th grade and 400 for 11th and 12th grade.
Okay,
So the traditional choice patterns will be in place until those numbers
our hit.
Then likely, the students registering after that point will be assigned to Heritage for your this year after June 15th.
Okay, so for those of you that probably did not hear that over Zoom, the cap for Lower Merion High School is 375 for freshman and sophomore years. Junior and senior, it's at 400. So that was announced last night. Are there questions in the room?
I guess with that, students that are coming from private school, I guess, what date do they get to initiate the registration? Because it sounded like online, February. Like you're saying that
Right, new student.
visitation happened in January.
So the visits are in January. If you're an incoming family, we'll make accommodations for you to be a part of those visits. I don't have the exact date of when new student registration opens, but it's early spring. And at that point, that's when you'd be able to register.
Amy, do you know the date for?
I don't think we set an exact date yet. It depends on when we have to do some rollover of the registration software.
Okay,
It's actually, yeah.
late February-ish.
Yeah.
Questions? Questions?
My student was introduced to the concept of a school resume, I think in 6th grade when he started middle school. And I haven't heard much about that, but I was curious if that's something that's built on more in high school. I imagine it is. And if you could talk a little bit about that and the importance of it.
A school resume?
Yeah, what do you mean by, like, for colleges are you talking about, or?
I mean, literally, it was something my child told me about. I've never heard anything from school, but it's something he started in his first year of middle school. It was the idea of building a school and academic resume.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, that's actually a lot of the work that our counselors will do with students. When you come into 9th grade, you'll have access to like Naviance in 8th grade into 9th grade. But Naviance is a program that will really work towards your post-secondary planning and your sort of resume building and things like that. So, one of the things we did this, we talked about our challenge success many, many years ago, just back in like 2017. So it's pre your time, sorry, but one of the things that we talked about in challenge success were what are the things that students are needing as they're transitioning through school? Are students just on the hamster wheel of just trying to get things done and check boxes? And we don't want students to just check boxes, right? We want to have meaningful experiences for students. So as you're sort of building that resume and thinking about, do you just sign up for clubs because you want to have 15 clubs on your resume? Or do you want to sign up for a couple clubs that are really meaningful to you? And like, that's really what the resume building is about. It's like, what am I involved in? What am I doing? And are you trying to impress someone further down the road for an application? And so that's a lot of the work counselors will do in terms of encouraging students to be involved and engaged, but also trying to have a healthy balance of what makes the most sense for you. And then a lot of what our counselors will talk about as you're sort of building for colleges is thinking about you know, what are your values and where, and in terms of where you want to go to school? Do you just want to check the box of like, I applied for an Ivy, I applied for my stretch school, I applied for the school I know I'm going to get into? Or are you aligning your college selections to the things that you really value as a family and as a student who's going to be moving forward? You know, do you value the type of coursework you're going to take? Do you want to be an educator, for example? What are some of the great teacher colleges? Do you want to be an engineer? Where are the places that I want to align you for that? Do you want a small campus or a large campus? So it's a little bit bigger than maybe just what's on your resume of things you've done, but also what are you looking forward to as you move forward? I know back in the day when I was coming out of high school, I was really big into getting away from home and thinking, so I'm looking at all these campuses across the country and ended up at Temple. And I call it Harvard of the Hood for those who are curious, but I ended up at Temple and really enjoyed the being closer to home after thinking that I want to be away from home. So I think a lot of what our counselors will talk to students about is what do you value, and not just what have you built as a resume, and thinking about the balance of courses and also balancing again your mental health throughout that journey to college. Hope that's helpful. Great.
School level, when you have your recommended courses for ninth grade,
Mhm.
and you maybe want to go off script a little bit, like you mentioned.
Mhm.
Who's the best person to discuss that with in the school? Is it the guidance counselor? Is it the teams?
Mhm.
The team teachers that are working with your students at that time, both? You know, what do you?
That's a really great question. So for those who didn't hear, when you have your courses recommended at middle school and perhaps you want to go off script and choose something different than what was recommended, who's it best to talk to? I really think you should start with your teachers, and thinking through and talking through like, what are your goals? What are the things you really want to do? I had a really great conversation with a parent last year as they were coming into ninth grade. And the parent was saying, hey, I'm not sure if I want my child to do honors, this, and that. So what are your child's interests? You know, if your child is not interested in science, then honors bio might be a really challenging choice to maybe make a stretch. But if your child is really interested in writing and reading, then maybe honors English or social studies makes more sense. But I think starting those conversations with teachers, and then your eighth grade counselor is a really great place to really have those conversations. And when we send that information out in early January to say, get ready for course selection, we're going to say to families, like, we want you to be involved in that, like talk to your kids, talk to the teachers, and really like make decisions that make the most sense for you. But I think it's best to start with the eighth grade teachers and the counselor. Yeah, you're welcome.
People with,
No questions, just comments. Thank you,
Oh.
Dr. Johnson. He's appreciated.
You're welcome. Oh, thank you. You're valued.
there are no questions?
No questions on that.
No questions, wait, is somebody just?
Question, sorry.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Robin,
I know, I like the computer. So if your student selects kind of all college prep or all honors, are they kind of, going to end up, particularly in ninth grade, because they do the teams with the same group of students?
So regardless of how you select, so I'll use teaming as an example. We have 3 teams at each high school, right? So team 1 is comprised of, let's say, 125 students. You're going to be with that 125 students because most of those classes are going to be teamed together. There are some areas where it's hard to do teaming, like math, because there's so many courses you can enter in. And world language is also not teamed. So for your core courses, your social studies, your science, your English, your English, those are the courses that are predominantly teamed. And so you'll have similar students in those courses. And then the other courses where it's more difficult to team, so all of your electives, the world language, and for the most part, the math, those courses aren't teamed. So while you'll see similar faces as you travel through those core, I'm saying core courses, even though these other ones are core courses, but social studies, science, and English, you're going to see similar faces in those classes if you go all one route. You won't see all the same faces. You won't travel with the same 25, but you will see certainly some of the same faces throughout your courses. But once you get to those other courses that aren't teamed, you'll have a greater mix across the entire ninth grade class because those courses aren't attached to particular teams. Hope that's helpful. That answer.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We do have a question online now.
Oh, great, okay.
Evie, if you want to unmute yourself. Okay, Evie, you can ask your question.
It's your volume. Evie, do you want to ask your question? Can you unmute yourself? Is your volume up? Oh, yeah, it should be. Evie?
She just got kicked out.
Oh, okay. And I see that there's a question from Lorraine Carter that just popped up.
I'm gonna ask you if you can repeat
want me to-
your question to Dr. Johnson that you had asked, when you, in the beginning of the meeting, because it might be of interest to some others. No, I'm speaking to the gentleman next to you, yeah.
Yeah, question of the children coming from the outside. How the partner school is going to work.
Particularly in relation to having a sibling, correct? Like in the
That's
school.
one, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have siblings, but and I don't want to be split up, but other parents and children, and one or they're coming to younger child. And the sibling has since graduated.
So- So I guess it's
And when to do that registration?
so the question was, if you have a current child at Lower Merion and you have another child in private school and you're looking to transition a child from private school to Lower Merion, would you be able to ensure that siblings are kept together?
So that's it's a great question that was asked earlier. We have kept siblings together. So if there's an older sibling who's currently attending Lower Merion and you have another sibling who's in a private school who registers, we've kept siblings together and kept families together. And we've worked, I think that's an important piece of the partner schooling to make sure that we're keeping families together.
There's a question.
So yeah, I got, so she doesn't have a microphone, so I'll just ask the questions. So the question was, she actually has two questions. At what point should the students reach out to teachers regarding their high school or college goals? And then the second part of the question, or second question, she said, is will there be a parent presentation for each of the high schools?
It's a great question. So I'll answer the first question first. So the conversation about college will start in ninth grade. There'll be some goal setting that students do. And then as the years go on and as they're building their Naviance profile, there'll be a variety of events that counselors will run, giving opportunity for students to learn more about that college process. You can start as early as you want in terms of having conversations with counselors, but there are some things designed in the counselor curriculum that allows for a natural progression of building your Naviance profile, thinking about your interests and needs, thinking about what you want to do moving forward, and thinking about colleges. You'll have a very formalized junior college meeting in the 11th grade year as you're preparing to think about those things. And then as you're entering senior year, seniors typically have a lot of angst at the start of senior year as they're applying for colleges and thinking about applications and early action and things like that. But there's sort of a time frame in which we do those things. Your formal meeting is in your junior year, which are actually being scheduled now for our current juniors. But there's a lot of conversation and exposure to information that occurs leading up to that.
Was that Lorraine Carter's question or was that from Evie?
That was from Evie. Yeah.
Okay, I think I saw one pop up from Lorraine. I just don't want them to get lost.
See that one, Sean.
And then,
No, I'm
in the
sorry. There was a
chat.
part 2 to that question. There
Oh.
was,
Yes, and then, was
And
there,
then-
yeah, say, what, or will there be parent presentations for each high school?
yeah, okay, so we do an 8th to 9th grade parent night in January. And that's a joint presentation with both Harriton and Lower Merion High School administration. So Mr. Warschauer, the acting principal at Harriton, and Dr. Grass will be the presenters. I think our presentation this year is at Harriton. And then I will be present there with Mr. Franco, who's the 9th grade assistant principal at Lower Merion. And we will do a joint presentation about all things related to the 8 to 9 transition. And then there's a move up day later in May where the students will go to the schools that they're coming to. And then we have a course selection night at the end of January, early February, where both high schools have their own course selection night. So you're able to come out to the course selection night for the high school aligned to where you plan to attend.
okay, so there are some questions here that were actually direct to this computer. Somehow, okay, so, or maybe it's, I don't know. One is a comment from Michelle. I have a meeting I need to run, but I wanted to say that Dr. Johnson and the LM staff have worked really hard to ensure that students have a smooth transition. It was seamless for my son. He was not overwhelmed and was excited about entering high school. Also, Dr. Johnson is willing to listen. Sorry, I'm having a hard time here. Willing to listen to and validate parents when they have concerns. I'm grateful for his leadership. Will the counselors or current middle school, another question from Benita, will the counselors or current middle school teachers tell us what the difference would be for honors versus non-honors classes? How are we as parents helping our students make that distinction or even choosing classes for ninth grade? Yeah,
I'll write it down and then.
okay, that's one question. Okay, so that's one question. Is the IB program available only for students enrolled at Harridan High School? I can answer that one quickly, is a yes, but I don't know if there's anything more that you want to say. Stephanie Tomei, thanks for your time and guidance. Regarding choice, what advice would you give to an 8th grader on how best to evaluate their high school options? Is there anything tangible but beyond tours for them to review and consider? And then I'll read one more out loud and then we'll get to new ones. When middle school teachers recommend ninth grade course levels, college prep, honors, IB, what are they considering when making the decision? Who is involved in that recommendation?
Okay.
So hold on, guys. We'll get to those and then I'll.
Start in reverse and work my way up. Middle school recs, work, recommending for college prep, honors, and IB. So there's a slide that we share in our January presentation that points to all of the things that the middle school teachers are considering and thinking about. And just as we have a ninth grade assistant principal, the middle schools also have administrators that are attached to their grade level that are involved in supporting that process, as well as the counselor. So they're thinking about how students did on their PSSAs, how students are currently performing in classes, collaborating in the team across how students are performing across the board, what are other teachers seeing as well. Work habits, study skills, executive functioning skills, like what are those sort of soft skills and things like that that are attached to how students are doing, and then trying to think about a balance of what needs to happen moving forward into high school. So that process at the middle school is pretty collaborative, and counselors are involved, and whoever the 8th grade administrator is that's involved with transition should also be involved in that process as well. Advice for school choice. I don't know what to say. That's a great question. I think we have 2 really great high schools. So I think that as you're considering where you want to go, I think you have to consider what you want to be involved in. And both schools present a great academic program. The IB program is unique to Harriton. So if that's something that you're considering, then you might want to give greater consideration to that. But both schools run the same AP program, the same college prep and honors courses, and we welcome students in a very similar manner. So I often find that over the years, families have thought about, where are our friend groups going? How do we, what do we want for ourselves moving forward? Do you want to be an ace? Do you want to be a Ram? Those are the types of things you have to kind of think through. But it really is an individual decision as you sit as a family and kind of think through what you want for yourselves. The IB
Can I
program
ask
is.
a quick follow-up? So sorry, that was my question. Hi.
Oh, all right.
I just wanted to ask real quickly if there was any is there any data or information that talks about size, demographics, extracurricular offerings, just something that they can kind of look at when making that choice?
Yes, so and that's actually, I'm glad that you asked that question. So when we send our high school mailing, we can include the high school profile page as well, and it will outline some of the things that are unique to both schools, which can give you a lot of information that way. And then both schools' websites, I'll have some information as well. But we can certainly share that high school profile page if that's
Super.
helpful in terms of processing your decision.
Thank you.
No problem. The other question, IB is Harriton only. We do allow for attendance area exceptions. If there's a student who's at Lower Merion who decides at the end of 10th grade they want to go into IB, we would allow them to transfer to Harriton. We have found that there's very few students who do that most students who go to IB start at Harriton and kind of work their way through. But we have had students transfer from their 10th to 11th grade year. And then will the honors and college prep be explained? The differences? Yes. So one of the things we will share when we send out all of the information for that transition in early January is the program planning guide that gives you the course descriptions for every course. So you're able to, as a family, really sit through and think about the differences between the courses, the differences between the levels. And then when you come out to that January presentation, we also share some of the anecdotes regarding that. And then that presentation, similar to this one, will be posted to the transition website, which we will send out to all families in January as well, so you have access to it.
Some hands up over here. Yeah.
Just a quick question, quickest summary, but what is the IB program?
So the International Baccalaureate Program is it's an international program that is open to students at Harriton High School. So Think about like AP courses, but like an international program related to that. So we oftentimes will have families come in from different countries that are in an IB program. They're able to come right to Harrington and sort of transition right into the program, but it's a specialized program that
So you give you college credit, or what's the?
depending on the college, but yeah, there's that opportunity for college credit. It's also the opportunity to explore. We have students who graduate from the IB program who will go to international schools and things like that as well.
It's actually like recognized internationally. So like if you wanted to go to, there are certain countries where you would need an IB certificate in order to study there.
And Mr. Tom O'Brien is the IB coordinator at Harrington, and he does a couple presentations a year. So you'll probably see information about one of those presentations in the early like winter months, because he does something as an information session for families so that you can learn more.
For students who choose it, it's an amazing program. I've heard great. You had a question as well?
Like IB program is exclusively offered at Heritage, is there something exclusively here in Lower Merion that would make like kids wanna transfer here or take this one over?
We have a pool.
Yeah.
In many districts where there's an IB program, it's typically at one school for
Right.
districts that have more than one. So no, we don't have a specialized program like IB at Lower Merion, but we do have a pool.
And not every child can choose Lower Merion. It's just the way that.
There's also a geographic aspect to it as well, because the end of the district where Lower Merion is, or the side of the district where Lower Merion is more densely populated. So having IB at Harrington probably helps encourage some people too.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm just seeing here that there are some questions that haven't been heard. I apologize. That question was whether there's a specialized program at LM in the same way that there is at Harrington. Okay, already covered. So sorry, these are like, some of these questions came through while we were talking about something.
Sure.
It's about keeping siblings together. Cicely, I'm not sure if you still have a question. If so, can you like type it in again? When
I
does
can talk.
Oh, sure, great. Okay, go for it.
Hi, Dr. Johnson. Thanks so much for doing this. I'm a huge fan of yours and appreciate everything that you're doing with the school. I wanted to know, just in terms of siblings, I didn't understand the question. So is it, if a sibling is in a private school and they are aligned to either Harrington, but maybe the other sibling is going to Lower Merion, they can go to Lower Merion?
Okay, so the question was about a student who may be in 8th grade who's transitioning to the district for 9th grade, if partner schooling is still in effect, and the older sibling already goes to Lower Merion High School, would we send the incoming 9th grader to Harrington? And my response to that is that we have kept siblings together in those situations where there's already a sibling enrolled and there's a new sibling coming in as a new registrant. We've kept those families and siblings together.
Great, thanks. I do have another question though. Different
Different
topic. Sorry, Lisa, didn't want you running back and forth. So you mentioned that when students transfer from middle school to high school, some of the things that you look at, one of them is executive functioning skills. And what I found is that that there's sometimes the teaching around like study skills and executive functioning skills and self-advocacy are kind of glossed over in terms of how to do those things. So, it doesn't necessarily correlate with whether or not the student can be in honors or needs to be in CP. But if a student has an IEP coming from the middle school, going to the high school, does that preclude them from being in any honors programs? And are there anything programs in place in high school to help support those executive functioning skills or study skills that they weren't necessarily taught or worked with in one of the middle schools? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I'm answering. If I don't hit it all, email me, we'll talk. But I think, so, no, having an IEP doesn't preclude you, if you have an IEP, for example, for learning support, it wouldn't preclude you from accessing the academic program, at the high school level. So just to answer that, if you do have an IEP and executive functioning is a part of the needs that you have outlined, in your plan, then you're getting like direct instruction in those things and getting a lot of support in that area. I think that we've given teachers a lot of exposure over the years as to what are some effective ways to really encourage the growth and development of executive functioning. One of the things we've learned about the prefrontal cortex is that it's not fully developed until you're maybe 25 or 26 years old. So what are some of those universally designed ways that we can set up classrooms so that students have encouragement to practice good executive functioning skills? So for example, teachers having their agendas posted when students come into the room and maybe posted in the same place every day. Reminding students of timers when we're working. We're going to give you some independent practice. We're going to do that for 10 minutes, right? Like that's a planning piece of executive functioning. Chunking assignments as a strategy that's good for all students. So we're going to give a project and we want you to work on building this thing over the next 5 weeks. In week 1, we want you to do this part. In weeks 2, 3, and 4, and really chunking out those things. So there are some really universally designed strategies that teachers use widely to support students in the development of those skills as they're transitioning to high school.
Awesome. So last follow-up is, so what you said sounds incredible and sounds exactly right, but how do you ensure that the teachers are actually pulling that through and it's being executed in the classroom?
Sure. I mean, so like today's pop-up PD was one really good opportunity for teachers to come out. We had a handful of teachers come out to that presentation. One of the things that we do with our staff is we send out a weekly update, and in that weekly update, we share information. So for the staff members that weren't present today who wanted to be there, but maybe had another meeting to go to, I'm going to share out, here's what we learned in our pop-up PD about executive functioning. Here are some strategies that were recommended. And then when we do walkthroughs and things like that, we're providing feedback to teachers on the things that we see and pointing out those strategies. One of the things that's great about the pop-up PD series is it gives us an opportunity as a staff to say, here's a great thing we saw in the classroom. We think everyone should have more exposure to it. Come out to a pop-up PD and learn more information about that. And then we have our department chairs who are helping to lead their departments and talking about what are the universally designed strategies that make the most sense and how do we make sure those things are implemented in classrooms. And then we collaborate around those things.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
Yeah. Can I just follow up on that? I was just wondering, I know you're high school, but for elementary school, is that happening too? Because I just know like my son had a project in 4th grade and it was like, this is due at this time and there was no like a chunking or anything like that. So I just was wondering.
Before you answer that, I want to switch computers because I think you guys are sending questions to the ISC, which is totally fine, except for the fact that the other computer isn't getting them, which is why I'm running back and forth. So give me a second to just transition. I'm going to just turn off the video.
Yeah, Lisa, there's not the option to send a question. You have to send it either to ISD or to Amy Badler.
Right, so that's, okay. Okay, wait,
We
this
need that,
volume.
Yeah.
Okay,
Turn the volume on there.
okay, all right. Okay, yes, and Amy Badler is actually, I think, where we wanted to have questions sent, but we didn't say that in the beginning, so we will figure that out on our end.
But now they should send them to ISC.
How do I,
Well,
now,
yeah, just who should people send questions to?
keep
To
sending
Amy
them to
Badler?
just switch, no, send them to ISC because we
Okay.
switched. Oh my God, okay, yeah. No, so how do I gallery? No, I don't know how to pin. Oh my God, okay. Okay, all right, so now we're good. Keep sending questions to ISC because we just switched around computers.
Lisa, where did you leave off in terms of asking?
Maybe okay, but why don't you answer that question?
Can you address
and-
So I mean,
I was just wondering if you knew, when this was starting, because it's such a beneficial thing, so.
yeah, I would say, I actually think you should talk to the teacher. I'd be curious.
I
mean,
did,
oh, okay,
it's
yeah.
actually, I actually worked with your wife at Ellen for.
Oh, hi, okay.
Hope she's doing, but I haven't
She
seen
is,
her in a
thank you.
while. But I think it's so important, so I did, and like we worked on some ideas together, and
Okay.
it was great, but I just think, I always wish that it could be implemented forever, for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having a lot more conversations in the last couple of years about universal design for learning and like what's good for some, that's good for others, and how do we mitigate, barriers to learning and things like that. So that's a common strategy that we've had a lot of conversations about at the high school level. I would imagine at the elementary level as well. So I would expect to see more of those types of things happening for sure.
I would echo that. My children are past elementary school at this point, but when they had large projects, the teachers, at least it seems like it might be teacher specific, because they really did a very good job of saying, okay, this week we're going to have this piece fleshed out, and then going through kind of giving them long-term planning to give them an idea. So it sounds like it might be just,
I think that is teacher specific.
Teacher,
Yeah,
I think
Based
that's
on my
specific.
own experience,
Yes.
which
yeah,
didn't always match yours.
yeah, well, Merion Elementary
Sometimes, yeah.
rocks. No, I don't know what to say. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, they did a great job of kind of giving them an idea, because I think to give a long-term project to a fourth grader without any kind
We
of,
were up a lot, like the night before.
yeah, it
Well,
would
because
be.
the
it would
project
be
really is
difficult.
about learning how to
Right.
do the project more than learning about.
And if there are checkpoints along the way.
And
it's-
Yeah.
my son won't listen to me, but he listened to the teacher, so
Of course,
me telling him didn't
Sure.
work, but if,
Hey,
It
Holly.
I have a fourth grader too, so I'm at Penn Win. I'm sorry if you had said where you were.
my son's in 5th grade now.
Oh, fifth, okay,
Yes,
so
but
our class had it each week, but I do know that it seems like it is teacher specific and also then in schools. Every school runs somewhat differently, but maybe this goes on the question, and this is such a big umbrella, so I'm not saying that you have to take it on, but it's just a great topic of, obviously, some things maybe can be more equally throughout other schools, that it would be a great idea that teachers I need executive functioning, so that's a great thing, like desperately as you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, I wanna be part of your classes, but that would be just a smart thing that maybe in professional development could be, we really, really, really recommend, whether it's 1st grade, 10th grade, or 5th grade, whatever it is, as best as you can to chunk it out, because I think all of us are saying, it's a nice thing that universally can be done.
yeah, I
Just
think
to-
it's so
It just,
great
so
that
whoever can
yeah.
take that on, Scott, that would be a positive
Yeah.
turn.
And actually, that makes me think of another question, which is kind of like between elementary and middle, like how much are the elementary school teachers speaking with the middle school teachers, speaking with the high school teachers? Like, are there across,
Is there collaboration across grade levels?
yeah, like do the 9th grade teachers ever give feedback back to like the 8th grade math teachers to say, hey, I found gaps in this and this in my kids' math learning, or,
Sure.
like, does it ever kind of
Yeah,
flow?
yeah. I think there's opportunities for that. We probably could do that more and have more opportunities for that transition. I think the 8 to 9 piece is a little bit more embedded and kind of built into that process of like collaboration. But what you're talking about more is the continuum and collaboration across content areas.
Well, and to
And,
see
like-
what's working and what's not, because I
Yeah.
imagine that when it was designed, that was kind of part of the thought process. But sometimes when things are put into practice, things get missed, or sometimes they work better, and then things happen, and maybe, I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's ever any kind of look back.
Yeah,
on
there are
how
times
it's-
and opportunities, probably not as much as people would like there to be. We really try to have at times collaboration across buildings so that Harriton and Lower Merion can collaborate, and then middle schools can collaborate. And maybe there's other opportunities at times where we can do collaboration of like 8 to 9 so that the high school folk and the middle school folk have a chance to talk more.
Can I ask you a question as well about, when you're talking about the teams in 9th grade, is that something that exists beyond 9th grade? Like, do they have that in 10th, 11th, 12th grade as well?
No. It's
Okay.
actually very uncommon to have 9th grade teams
And is that
in a
new?
lot of places. No, we've had 9th grade teams. I mean, I'm in the district 11 years. 9th grade teams were here when I got here.
Okay.
And
I don't even know if I'm just speaking personally.
Sure.
I had 2 ninth graders at LM, and I didn't even know that the
teams were a
teams
thing.
existed. I knew they existed in
I don't think it
middle
exists in
school.
the same way it does in middle school. I don't think it's
It just
quite
seemed like
as
everyone's
cohesive.
schedules would be all separated out because everyone takes different.
Yeah, I mean, I just found it was like another way to kind of help support the first years a
Right,
little bit.
it is,
more.
it is, so there's a dedicated ninth grade administrator who sits on the 3 ninth grade teams, attends those team meetings, helps to align efforts across teams and collaboration about students. It's a little bit different than the teaming you get at a middle school, where the classes might all be near each other or maybe podded like they are at Black Rock or something like that. The classes are certainly more spread out in a high school environment, but if there are 125 students on team 1, the teachers who are scheduled on that team for the most part have those 125 students. So it exists as a support to help those students transition in.
Great.
And it's been in existence for a really long time in the district. I know, I'm sorry. We
No, I thought of it, I thought
I'm
of the
sure
ninth
there's
grade
plenty
more
that
as like
I
from an
don't know that I'm not
administrative
aware of.
perspective versus like middle school where it's more like peer based. I mean, that's sort of how I've kind of wrapped my head
Yeah,
around
there's
it.
there's
like-
probably a good, that's probably a good way to look at it, that, yeah.
Amy, there are more
Yeah,
questions,
there's
I
there's
know.
one more question of mine. Do you want this one?
Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin, and then we'll go.
So, I have an 8th grader, so I'm going through this lovely process. And my student has many friends that have choice, he does not.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious, because all about October-ish, a lot of his friends who had choice have kind of made decisions.
Mm.
And so my question is, has the district really thought about pushing some of those school visits or having kids and parents understand the choices a little earlier, not course selection? Because I think personally that some of these decisions are being made far earlier in the year than January.
It's an interesting perspective. So we haven't had conversations about moving that timeline earlier. We've sort of aligned it to when the scheduling process starts at the high school level, which is like December-ish. We really have to develop a calendar of what's going to happen with regard to building the schedule, which is a lot of what happens with the course selection piece. So we've traditionally held it in January, and I don't know if we have. We haven't talked about it. We haven't had a lot of discussions about it. I think that I would agree with you. I think when a lot of students come to visit, I can tell you in my 8 years at Harriton, there were a lot of students who would come in and like, I already know I'm going to Lower Merion, and kind of had it in their minds. I can tell you, sometimes you win kids over after they have an experience and see that something wasn't what they thought it was. And so I think that happens at times too. Maybe not by and large, but certainly there are pockets of students that may make a different decision. I do think a lot of students make their decision based on their social groups. In their peer groups, and sometimes those peer groups sort of trajectory together. So if you have 150 kids in that choice area, there are just blocks of kids who are going to travel together because they've been friends for a really long time and they want to stay together. And sometimes you have students who make a different decision and say, you know what, I might fare a little bit better if I access a different social group and maybe make a different decision. So I agree with you. A lot of students do make those decisions early on. But I do think a lot of families change their minds after those visits, and even after the choice deadline. There are some families that reach out and say, listen, we've had a change of heart. We've talked as a family and thought about, changing our decision and going a different way. So, moving it earlier or later, I don't know if it has as great of an impact up and through maybe the later springtime when we, really solidify, here's where you're going. So by move up day in May, that we really have those things kind of squared away. We do give some flexibility for families who may make a different decision.
Is it possible, I know one of the suggestions that had come out of ISC to maybe incorporate a more formal exposure to things like inviting perhaps the drama club at BC to a Harriton Drama Club event, or the newspaper group if you're trying to introduce more people who are slated to go to LM to Harriton, to sort of give them exposure, because when they're at the schools, things like, if there's a community event at the school and they're there, then they might be more comfortable with it. If there's been any thought given to doing that in a more formal way to
And I will
invite
add
the
that
school.
we did brainstorm some ideas in the ISC, and actually I did send an email to Ms. Schaefer. I'm gonna forward it to both you and Scott.
Okay.
Of ideas of like how to kind of do more of that, but I'll let you answer Kim's
Yeah,
question.
I think not as not as proactively like before the season of scheduling and course selection, all that kind of starts. We typically try to expose students to fun aspects and things that we offer at the high school level. So our jazz band may perform for the students who come for the January visits. Harriton's choral group may perform, or their Pitch Please student group. So we try to get students involved in sort of marketing the school and the things that we offer. And we did, so we, at Lower Merion, we invited our incoming ninth grade families to our not move up day, our food truck festival. Just like, here's your first event. And that's, again, that's after the fact.
Exactly.
The
I actually
choices have
want
been
an
made and
invite
all
to
those
that
things.
next
I
year.
got you covered.
Don't do that, Harridan.
I got you covered. But to your point, not as proactively. And there, you know, can we think about something like that? Probably. Just some spaces and opportunities to say, here's exposure to some of the things that we offer at the different schools, and the opportunity to do that. We could explore something like that, I'm sure.
It might just help, you know, if they have a great feeling about a school, it might, to Robin's point, it might, before the decisions seem to be made long before that January tour of
Time
the
frame,
school.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. And when you talk about
Yeah.
building peer relationships, there may be opportunities there as well. I know there were
There's
quite a few
couple,
more
yeah.
questions online, so we should get to
Okay,
some of those.
so this is from Janelle. Is there a resident expert, i.e. the school psychologist, who may be able to give a talk, workshops, etc., for parents on allowing kids agency while continuing to monitor them? It's hard not to be helicoptering our children, and we still need to be watching, particularly developmental stuff and executive functioning. That's one question. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would say probably so. So, you know, one of the things that we will do with our fire workshops is we're going to solicit some feedback as to what are some topics parents would like to see us cover, in addition to like Schoology and like AI for families and things like that. So if there's an opportunity to explore that, we have a ton of resident psychologists in the district that, you know, are able to, and it's just a matter of availability and maybe aligning some of those things. So I'll take that as a suggestion for the sessions that we're looking to run.
And then this was a question about the CAP. They were just trying to understand what it means. Does that mean priority will be given to direct students versus choice students? For example, all BC students, would they be guaranteed a spot at LM, but Penguin students can only get a spot at LM if there are spots left from the rest of elementary schools?
Did you both hear the question?
Yeah, this is so I'll read it out. What exactly does the CAP mean? I guess they're wondering, does that mean priority will be given to the direct students versus choice students? For example, all BC students are guaranteed a spot at LM, but Penguin students can only get them if there are spots left from the rest of the elementary schools.
So if students are currently students in the district, they get into the school they want. The caps are applying to newly registering students to the district.
For those of you that didn't hear that, the caps are for newly registering students in the district.
So someone
For
either
example,
moving
this
in or
year,
transferring.
and we have really big classes this year, there were 35 students that were newly registered to the district and assigned to her.
So this year, apparently, there were 35 students that newly came into the district that were,
These are families that came in and registered their kids in the summer, like we didn't even begin that until June 15th.
okay.
Okay, the next question is, how is the music program at Lower Merion High School? My daughters are currently in 8th grade orchestra and slowly losing interest. Do you have any advice or suggestions to encourage them to pursue this in 9th grade?
Come to the winter and spring concerts. We have a phenomenal music program. So I am a musician. I've been playing the piano for 32 years. So there's a special place in my heart for the music programs wherever I work. We have phenomenal music programs at both schools. You know, obviously I've been at Lower Merion for the last 3 years, so I know my music teachers really well. They run a rigorous and very, 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 very tight program. And our students are engaged, and they put on phenomenal shows every year. Our students excel musically at Lower Merion, and at Harriton as well. But specifically for your kids that are looking to come to LM, come on. we would love to have you as a part of the music program. Yes, keep practicing. Come out and see shows as they occur throughout the year, and get exposure to, you know, some of those opportunities that we have.
Cicely, do you want to unmute yourself, or do you want me to read this? You said you would do either.
Oh, okay. I can say it. Actually, you should probably read it.
Okay, I could just read it. The practice of reminding students about how they were taught to chunk their steps when completing multi-step projects in elementary and middle. And maybe there is a cheat sheet that can be referenced, maybe a PDF shared in homeroom at the beginning of the year that provides a template with headers so they can visually determine what their deadlines for various components of their project should be. So it's providing a framework, but leaving it up to the students to use it as a way to get themselves organized. And then teachers could just reference that tool that can be used in any class that has a project. And then, so that was her suggestion.
Yeah, that was just around like supporting executive functioning, just because like Cammie was saying at Merion, they did a really good job of like having a chart and this and that. And not that we want our high school students to be like our elementary school students, but sometimes they have a problem like remembering or link, oh yeah, I did do that before and this is how I did it. Just that recall trigger might, be helpful in high school.
And then the last question also is back to the marching or the music program.
Okay.
Whether there is a marching band at LM or Harriton, and if there are plans to have one in the future.
I don't want to say. So no, we do not have a marching band. Harrison does have a drum line that performs at their football games and at. Oh yeah. If you go to the football games, there's a drum line that performs at the home football games and during pep rallies.
That would get me to a football game.
And
actually.
Yes, we've had conversations about marching bands, and I'll just leave it there for now. Yes, there was a marching band at a point in time, and that's something I would love to explore. I think a marching band just adds so much to the like culture of the music program and like the things you're able to do. So
School spirit.
excited to explore that in the future for sure.
That's all the questions that are in the chat.
Okay.
Are there any other questions in the room?
Well, thank you all for being here today.
Thank you all.
Our next session is January something. Cammie's looking up the date, but we will be.
It is January 21st.
21st. We will be bringing in Drew Gingrich, who is our interim supervisor of humanities. Thank you. So bring your questions to that as well.
And then January 8th,
Oh,
the
yes.
ISC Parent Ed has
Yeah, wait,
January 8th.
come closer to
sorry.
that.
January 8th at 7 o'clock, it's a Zoom meeting, and we have a psychologist coming in and talking about anxiety from elementary school to high school, how to help your student with executive functioning, friend group, and technology anxiety or issues. So again, January 8th, 7 p.m. on the Zoom, and
So January 8th is Zoom only. January 21st is Zoom and in person in the administration building. The links for both meetings should be in your school newsletters on the district website, and we will also post it to the ISC Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you for joining
Thanks,
us.
Dr. Johnson.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This was incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.